And I'm back. It has been a while, and I apologize. Been busy, been trying to really grow my TikTok account there, and it's been going pretty well, actually. And I'll tell you what, TikTok is addictive, and it's taking over the whole social media app game right now. So the link to my TikTok is in the description below here. And if you have a TikTok, definitely give me a follow. And if you don't have a TikTok, I suggest that you download it ASAP because it's great. It's a great app. But yeah, I digress from that. I have taken too much time in between my last YouTube video and this video, and I can tell you that won't happen again. I'm going to get on a tear here and start putting these out kind of regularly, a few times a week at the very least. But this one in particularly, I wanted to talk about a certain article that's been floating around about COVID-19, and only 6% of the deaths are directly related from COVID, because there's a lot of misconception behind it. A lot of people are falling victim to what seems to be confirmation bias by saying a lot of people, I mean Trump supporters, they want to believe this stuff. They're searching out any way, shape, or form that lets them think that COVID is not real or a hoax or it's hyped up or whatever. So they read articles like this and they fall victim to confirmation bias. It's really plain to see. And then some people just are cognitively compromised and don't understand, much of what they read. So the article states that 94% of COVID deaths were from people who had some sort of underlying condition, and that only 6% of the deaths so far in the United States are directly related to COVID. So people are saying like, oh, look, it's not that big a deal. It's not that deadly. It's not that serious. Guys, this is nothing new. This is nothing new. We've known this from the beginning. The health experts have told us from the beginning that you're more susceptible to die from COVID if you have underlying conditions. And I mean, newsflash, it's like that for most diseases, most ailments in the human body, that if you have other conditions that are also having deleterious effects on your health, if you get another disease on top of that, it of course it's going to up your chances to die or to even get more sick, obviously. So this is nothing new. This is nothing that we weren't aware of. And to throw on top of that, 6% is kind of, so that's not like a comforting number anyway. So you mean to tell me that 6%, so far 6% of the deaths from COVID, these people were healthy as a horse like 14 days prior? They had no other underlying health conditions, no heart disease, no hypertension, no diabetes, nothing like that. They're healthy, going along about their lives. They get COVID-19 and they're dead? That's frightening. That's not reassuring in the slightest. But let's take a look for the people that say like, this is not a big deal or whatever. Let's take a look from the CDC on some of their statistics on a few of the top 3 underlying conditions with COVID that lead to death, and how many Americans actually have these conditions. It's a lot. Okay, so here we go. Nearly half of adults in the United States, 108 million, or 45%, have hypertension. Only 1 in 4 adults, 24%, with hypertension have their condition under control. So only 1 in 4 adults, 24%, with hypertension have their condition under control. Over 100 million adults in this country have hypertension. Now let's go to diabetes, which is another top underlying condition that is linked with COVID that causes higher rates of mortality. 34.2 million Americans, just over 1 in 10, have diabetes. Now, I'm sure some of these 34.2 are also counted in this 108, but we can suffice that it's over 130 million Americans, somewhere around there, that have diabetes and or hypertension. Another one they mention, another big underlying health condition that if you have and you get COVID, it has higher rates of mortality. This is heart disease. So number of adults diagnosed with heart disease is 30.3 million. These are all statistics from the CDC. These are all the most recent statistics from the CDC. So we can suffice that 130 minimum to 160 or so million Americans have just these three underlying health conditions. Now, there are a myriad of other underlying health conditions that the CDC lists that are in conjunction with COVID have higher rates of mortality for the patient. But yeah, so this is why, lockdown, social distancing, masks, and everything that we're doing, this is why we're doing it, because about half the country have just these three prominent underlying conditions. You add on more, we're talking hundreds of millions of Americans who are more susceptible to die from COVID because they have these underlying health conditions. That is why it's a big deal. That's really the main reason why it's a big deal. It's mind-boggling to me that people would see that article. This is the article that I was talking about. So it's mind-boggling to me that people would see that article and think like, oh yeah, this proves my point. No, it doesn't prove your point. You're just falling victim to confirmation bias. This is everything we've known before. If you have underlying health conditions, you're more susceptible to COVID. You're more likely to die. And it's also true of many other diseases. And on top of that, if you have a disease, so if you have, if you die of cancer, but you also, when the patient died, they had diabetes, you don't not count that as a cancer death. They had diabetes too, but they died of cancer. They had hypertension, but the reason they're in the hospital on a ventilator having trouble breathing is because they caught COVID. So that's why they died. That's the straw that broke the camel's back, so to speak. Guys, we got to stop with this misinformation. And the best thing to do, honestly, is if you're unsure of an article, you're unsure of the data, statistics, and you don't care or don't have the time to really find out what's going on there, just don't share it. Man, just don't share it. Just don't. Because this is part of the problem, with the human psyche and social media in general. Social media allows us to spread misinformation like wildfire. And then the human psyche and just the human condition a lot of times is not to do the heavy lifting and the hard work to figure out what's going on. You read a headline and then you share it, or you read the article and you're not even aware of what confirmation bias is, and you don't realize that you're falling victim to the confirmation bias as you read the article, and you're like, oh, only 6% of deaths are really related to COVID. That's not what this article is saying. It's just not. And it's really not even giving us any new news. We've known this for a while. So we just got to stop with the misinformation. And like I said, the best thing to do is if you don't understand something or you don't care to figure it out enough, just don't share it, man. Just don't share it. So appreciate if you made it this far. Again, I apologize for the lapse in between videos. It had been a while. Definitely give me a follow on TikTok, because I post there on TikTok daily, more than one video. It's a lot easier. Doesn't take as much time. The editing is obviously a whole lot simpler. The uploading is simpler. But I will be sure to put out more content here on YouTube in the coming days and weeks, so stay tuned for that. And like and subscribe, and appreciate everyone watching.